When you made it into early maps, it's extremely important you sustain your maps. And there's actually a lot of hidden things that you should do. Namely, first and foremost, you can actually take your distilled emotions and increase the amount of monsters you find in a map. So if I were to take my tier 14 map here, for example, and I were to right click my distilled emotions, which are coming from the delirium modifier on your biomes or in your map device, you can actually slot in your map. It doesn't have to be a tier 14. It can be a tier 1, tier 2. And when you're now using, for example, a distilled ire, you will actually see that you are increasing the pack size. Therefore, in this specific case, you now find 20% increased magic monsters with a downside of being delirious. In Path of Exile 1, Delirious made you deal less damage and also take more damage. We will have to see how it's exactly in Path of Exile 2, but you can expect something similar. So at the cost of and making the maps a little bit harder, you actually get quite a lot more out of them, because obviously increasing the pack size also directly increases the amount of drops that you will find throughout the map, and also the amount of waystones. There is also another very important thing. The Cataclysm's Wake that you are starting out of will reward you with Atlas passive points. Very important here is as well, you can actually do a higher tier map for the completion of a lower quest. So for example, I am currently completing tier 12 maps, although I'm running tier 14, 15 maps already. They still count towards the quest's progress, so keep that in mind. But as soon as you finish the first Cataclysm's Wake, which is 10 tier 1 maps or higher, you are getting your first 2 Atlas passive points. And in my opinion, there are very important ways to go first. Namely, we have a cluster of these higher tier waystones. These in total will give you a 50% chance for waystones that you found to be a tier higher. This is exactly what I went for first. Here you can see that I have quickly taken these up so that we can actually start progressing higher up in the Cataclysm's Wake quest and also gain more experience, better loot, because we are fighting higher level monsters. Then afterwards, I instantly beelined towards this cluster right here, because that is 6% increased quantity of waystones found in your maps, which is 18% right here, and I pathed over this way and then made my way right here into the waystone quantity. Then I start filling out everything else that increases the amount of waystones I can actually find. For example, pack size, or also increased magic pack size. One rare monster in your map is duplicated, increased rare monsters, increased magic monsters in your map. So all of this contributes not only to the amount of monsters that you find, which then grant more experience per map, but also directly into the amount of waystones that you can find. As you slowly progress through the maps, you will start crafting, and you obviously will also start failing your crafts. Very important here is that you get an actual second crafting attempt for your correct base that you try to craft on. And that is when you use the reforging bench in your hideout or in the Ziggurat's refuge. You can actually take your failed crafting attempts and literally with the reforging bench reforge them together and get another try at maybe getting the correct affixes on the correct base that you tried to craft on previously. Usually how this works is that it is taking some of the affixes that are present on the item and are then going to basically slam them together. For this to work, the bases need to be similar. So for example, I do have 3 advanced bombard crossbows here. And if I, for example, say really want the prefix right here with the increased physical damage, and I want to also get the mana that is on this one, for example, on the suffix, and I really want to get the dexterity on this one, I could again try to reforge those together and actually make use of having so many crafting attempts to actually maybe get really lucky and combine them to a really good upgrade that is going to then serve my character. Very important here is though, if you can actually sell them instead for like 2 to 3 exiles, you should definitely do so to get your currency income going, so that you can then actually look at the trading website to then actually deterministically find a couple more items without actually RNG involved and then straight up sniping them from the trading website. On the trading website, it is extremely important to use that if you want to get to the end game faster and make your gearing process a little bit easier. The link to this will be down in the description below, and you can log into your Path of Exile account here, and then you can search like you could on an auction house. So for example, let's say you are looking for another Bombard crossbow, which needs to be expert, for example, and when you click on search right here, you will find 329 Bombard expert Bombard crossbows, and then when you click here on the show filters, you can actually see that you will, for example, type in I need increased physical damage, and you also want projectile skills, and then if you search again, that has narrowed down the search results tremendously. You could also, for example, sort by physical DPS, so you can actually see that this one right here would probably be extremely good if you were playing the build that I am playing, and then you can actually start whispering the people. Very important here is that you can do this for any item category. So if you need better boots, for example, because you don't have movement speed yet, then you would do that right here. You would type in the boots, you would get rid of all of the stat filters that you previously implied. You can also just clear everything here, makes it much easier. Boots, then you go here for movement speed, and maybe you also have a resistance that you need. So you go here, you go to the fire resistance, and to be res capped, you need exactly 20 fire resistance, and you want to get movement speed of like 20. That's how you go. You do the search, and then you can actually choose from the 7,357 that are available currently on the auction house. Very important here is if you manage to find a good item that you think you could sell, then you are going to set this up in your stash. Let's take an unused quad stash tab that I have here, for example. Then you right click on the stash tab. It needs to be in this case, this is a quad stash tab, so it's a little bit bigger. Right clicking here, you can set this now to public, and you can choose between setting each item price individually or a negotiable price, which I wouldn't recommend, and an exact price on all items, which I have done for all of the ones that you can see right here in pink. And what I then do, if I'm looking at an item, I can very certainly tell it's like between 3 or 5 exiles, or you can say, oh, this is a really expensive one, this is more like 40x. Then I just dump them in here, and then they start appearing on the auction house or the trading website, basically. Very important to utilize that, because if you get a couple of sales, you can then obviously reinvest the currency that you made into your builds to get you going quicker. Now, during mapping, what I actually really focus on is I always want to beeline towards the next reachable tower. So for example, my character is currently here in this tower, and I am now looking to get ASAP to the next one, which would actually be this way right here. Or what you can also obviously do is you can just go to a completely different area, which would look like this. Here you can see there's 3 towers in a row that I would really like to take over, because very important here is, and to tie all of this together, you are going to be using the precursor tablets that you can find while mapping on these towers. Namely, you are going to take them, you put them here, and this precursor tablet, which you can also transmute and orc, and you should do this, by the way, to then apply more modifiers to all of the, or to some of the biomes, because these tablets are increasing the biomes or the maps that you are running tremendously in terms of rewards, in pack size, and the amount of stuff that you can actually extract out of them. If I were to apply this one to here, you can actually see that now a couple of these biomes or maps now actually have additional modifiers. If we now check the cenotes right here, you can see that we're getting increased experience gain, increased magic monsters, increased rare monsters, and so on and so forth, which then obviously instantly translates in more currency, more waystones to sustain yourself, and overall more character power resulting out of that, because you're obviously also getting more experience. Some of these tablets can also roll with higher chances to find waystones, so that in itself is also going to help you out tremendously in sustaining your waystones. There's also other waystones which you probably are going to use as soon as they become available. For example, right here, this is a breach precursor tablet, which actually adds the leak mechanic breach to the maps in range. So this one right here would add the breach mechanic to 6 maps in range. I obviously can't use that one on the tower because it only can take one of the tablets. But if I hadn't used the tablet before, I could now actually force a breach into 6 maps that are in range of this tower. If I really want to farm breach for some reason, that would be a very good option. But right now, I'm actually looking to use the more general tablets a little bit more, so that I can actually profit off of higher XP, higher rare monsters, and so on and so forth. Obviously, if you have a precursor tablet that gives you more XP, more rare monsters, more magic monsters, stuff like that, and also gives you a leak mechanic that you like, then obviously use those as well. I'm currently live blasting way more maps on Twitch. You can find the link down in the description below, and if you like content similar to this, make sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel, and I'll see you next time.